For days out of town, I came home to a stranger on my couch who claimed she was my wife. My name is Ethan Hayes, and I'm just a regular guy, an analyst at some downtown firm. After 4 days on the road, I dragged my suitcase through the door of my apartment, and my life fell apart. Her name was Claire, she said, and she had a marriage certificate with both our names on it. The certificate was real. The date was the day before I left for my trip, but I had no memory of it. None. My friends, my family, even the cops, they all said she was my legal wife. Was I losing my mind, or had the whole world gone insane? Our forced life together became a minefield of suspicion and defense. Who was this woman who called herself my wife? And what the hell did she want from me? My key slid into the lock. 2 turns. The deadbolt clicked open. I was dead on my feet. 4 days, 3 nights, 2 flights. My brain was a slideshow of my client's doughy face and endless PowerPoint slides. All I wanted was to collapse onto my couch, order a pizza, and sleep for a week. I dragged my carry-on inside, kicked the door shut behind me, not even bothering with the lights. The living room was dim, sliced by the glow of the city filtering through the blinds. I dropped my bag by the door, kicked off my shoes, and launched myself toward the sofa. Thump! I didn't land on the soft cushions I knew so well. I hit something warm and soft. Adrenaline vaporized my exhaustion. Who's there? I scrambled to my feet, fumbling for the light switch on the wall. The lamp clicked on. A woman was sitting on my couch, holding my favorite mug, staring at me with wide, startled eyes. She was wearing a simple gray sweatsuit I'd never seen before, her hair loosely tied up. She looked to be in her mid-20s with a clean, unassuming beauty. But I was 100% certain I had never seen her before in my life. Who are you? What are you doing in my apartment? My mind raced. A burglar? Didn't seem likely. What kind of burglar lounges on the couch drinking water? Wrong apartment? Impossible. It was a keypad lock plus a deadbolt. How'd you get in? The woman stood up. She was shorter than I expected. She placed the mug on a coffee table, her movements a little jerky. You're back. You must be exhausted, she said, her voice soft, tentative. What was this, some kind of new scam? I took a step back, my hand already finding my phone in my pocket, ready to dial 911. I'm going to ask you one more time. Who are you? Tell me right now, or I'm calling the cops. My voice was ice. She seemed to shrink under my glare. She bit her lip, then reached for a purse sitting on the end of the couch. She pulled something out, a small, official-looking document folder. She held it out to me. I didn't take it. I just stared at her. Ethan, she said my name, then opened the folder and held it in front of my face. We were just at the county clerk's office. Yesterday. I looked down. A marriage certificate. In the photo, I was wearing a white button-down, my expression stiff. Tucked right next to me was this woman, smiling so wide her eyes crinkled at the corners. The names, Ethan Hayes, Claire Miller, my social security number, hers, the embossed seal of the county clerk, crisp and clear, and the date, the day before I left for Chicago. A buzzing sound filled my ears. My vision went fuzzy at the edges. Married? Me? To her? Yesterday. What the hell was going on? Yesterday, I was at the airport, getting ready to fly out. My entire day was documented in my calendar, my emails, my rideshare history. There was no way I could have gone to City Hall and gotten married. What is this? Some kind of prank? This is a fake, right? I snatched the certificate from her, turning it over and over. The paper stock, the raised seal, the font, it all looked terrifyingly real. It's not a fake, she said quietly. You were there. You signed it. I flipped to the signature page, and there it was, next to my name, a clear, dark thumbprint. The room started to spin. Was I drugged? Did I have a psychotic break during this business trip? Impossible. I don't even know you, I said, locking eyes with her, searching for any sign she was lying. But her gaze was steady, tinged with something that looked like hurt. I know this is sudden, she stammered. You had to leave in such a rush yesterday. We didn't get a chance to really talk. I was going to wait for you to get back, and then we could. Stop. I cut her off. I don't care who you are. Get your things and get out of my apartment. Now, or I swear to God, I'm calling the police. I pulled out my phone and dialed. She didn't move. She just stood there, watching me. The operator picked up. 911, what's your emergency? Yes, there's an intruder in my apartment. A woman. She has a fake marriage license, and she won't leave. My address is. I rattled off my address. The police were there in less than 10 minutes. 2 officers stood in my doorway, looking from me to her, then at the marriage certificate, their expressions unreadable. Mr. Hayes, this is your wife, Claire, correct? The older one asked. I thought I must have misheard him. My wife. I don't know her. That certificate is a forgery. I pointed at Claire, my voice rising. The officer pulled me aside, lowering his voice. Mr. Hayes, calm down. We ran your names through the system on the way over. You and Ms. Claire Miller were officially married yesterday at 9:30 a.m. Your marital status is legally filed. The certificate is valid. The blood drained from my face. It was in the official system. How is that possible? No, that's not possible. I have travel records. A plane ticket. You can check it. I was practically shouting. We understand, sir. Maybe there's been a misunderstanding, or did you two have a fight? The younger officer chimed in, trying to be helpful. It happens. A little argument. No need to get law enforcement involved. Claire stood off to the side, her head bowed, looking like the victim of some terrible injustice. Officers, I'm so sorry to have bothered you, she said softly. He's just been working too hard. He's stressed. We can handle this ourselves. She was a hell of an actress. The older cop patted my shoulder. Look, Mr. Hayes, you heard your wife. We can't get involved in domestic disputes. You two just talk it out. We'll be on our way. And just like that, they left. The door clicked shut, leaving the two of us alone in the suffocating silence of my living room. I stared at her. She stared back. I was out of options. The evidence was undeniable. Official. Certified. Ethan Hayes, was a married man. My wife was Claire Miller. But for the life of me, I couldn't even remember what color shirt she was wearing in the damn photo. Who are you? I asked again, my voice a raw whisper. All the energy had drained out of me. She walked over, gently took the certificate from my numb fingers, and placed it carefully back in her purse. My name is Claire, she said, and I'm your wife. I collapsed onto the couch, looking at this stranger who had hijacked my life, looking at the apartment I'd lived in for 3 years. For the first time, it felt like I didn't belong here at all. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch all night while she slept in my bed in my bedroom. When the sun came up, I had 2 black holes for eyes and my brain felt like scrambled eggs. I tried to reconstruct the day before my trip, our supposed wedding day. Woke up at 7, made myself an egg. Left at 8, took the train to the office. Got to work at 9, handed off projects to my team. 11, met with my boss about the trip. 12, grabbed a burger from the place downstairs. 2, took an Uber to the airport. 4 o'clock flight. Every single moment was accounted for. There was no gap in my memory, no window of time where I could have gone to a county clerk's office I'd never been to and married a woman I'd never met. The bedroom door opened. Claire emerged, dressed in a simple t-shirt and jeans. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked refreshed, untroubled. Seeing me, she offered a small, natural smile. Morning. Are you hungry? I made breakfast. I followed her gaze. On the small dining table were 2 plates with breakfast sandwiches and 2 glasses of what looked like hot coffee. The smell of bacon hit me, and my stomach growled. I was starving, but I didn't move. I'm not interested in talking about breakfast, I said, standing up and walking over to her. I need an explanation. A real one. Her smile faded a little. She nodded. Okay, let's sit down. We sat at the table, the food untouched between us. I'll say it again. I don't know you, and I never went to City Hall with you. So what the hell is going on? I stared at her. But we did go, she answered, her voice calm. You even wore a new white shirt for the occasion. A jolt went through me. I had worn a new white shirt that day. I was meeting an important client and wanted to look sharp. Only I knew that. How did she know? Have you been investigating me? It was the only logical explanation. No, she said, shaking her head. I'm just telling you what happened. Okay, fine. If we went, how we get there? What did the clerk's office look like? What did the person who married us look like? I fired off the questions, tried to catch her in a lie. She paused for a moment, then spoke slowly. We took an Uber. The driver was a middle-aged guy who talked a lot. There was a big oak tree right outside the entrance to City Hall. The clerk who handled our paperwork was a woman with glasses. She smiled and told us we made a lovely couple. Every detail was so specific, so real. So real it made me start to question myself. Was it possible? Did I have amnesia? No. I couldn't have just lost an entire day. You could have made all that up, I said, unconvinced. I didn't, she said, her eyes sincere. Ethan, I know this is hard to accept, but it's the truth. Maybe you just temporarily forgot. Forgot. I let out a bitter laugh. I forgot I got married? Does that sound plausible to you? Sometimes, under extreme stress, or for other reasons, people can forget things, she said. Talking to her was like talking to a brick wall. Fine. Let's say I believe you. Then how do we meet? When did we start dating? Why the sudden marriage? You have to tell me that much. This was the basics. If she couldn't even invent a believable backstory, this whole conversation was over. She seemed prepared for the question. We met 3 months ago at a friend's gallery opening. You spilled coffee on my dress. I frowned. I did go to a friend's gallery opening 3 months ago. We hit it off. You asked me out a few days later. We went to the movies, walked through the park, ate at food trucks. You told me you liked me, that you felt comfortable with me. Everything she described sounded like the courtship of any normal couple. Mundane, but believable. As for why we got married, you said you felt you were at an age where you were ready to settle down. You said you'd met the right person and you didn't want to wait. She finished and watched me, letting the information sink in. My mind was spinning. The gallery opening, the white shirt, the chatty Uber driver. The details lined up. But why didn't I feel anything? I had no sense of familiarity toward this woman who claimed to be my wife. What about proof? Proof we were dating. Text messages, photos, there has to be something. I pulled out my phone, ready to scroll back through months of messages. You won't find any, she said. What do you mean? Yesterday. No, the day we got the license. That morning, you said we should delete all our old chats to start fresh. And you said we'd have plenty of new pictures, so we didn't need to keep the old ones. My fingers froze over the screen, deleted our chat history, deleted all the photos. What kind of lunatic does that? It sounded more like destroying evidence. Ethan, she said suddenly, her voice soft. Look at your right hand. I instinctively lifted it. My ring finger was bare. Now look at mine. She held up her left hand. A simple silver band was on her ring finger. After we left City Hall, we went and bought rings. You said you'd let me hold on to yours until you got back from your trip. She reached in her pocket and pulled out another ring. It was a perfect match for hers, just a few sizes bigger. A man's ring. I stared at it, and it felt like it was burning a hole in my vision. All the evidence, all the details, pointed to one impossible conclusion. I was married, to a woman I had absolutely no memory of. I don't believe it, I said, jumping to my feet and grabbing my jacket. I'm going to see my friends, my parents. They'll know. They wouldn't hide something this huge from me. I needed a third party, someone I trusted completely, to tell me if any of this was real. The first person I thought of was my best friend, Mark. I stormed out of the apartment. Claire didn't try to stop me. I ran downstairs, hailed a cab, and went straight to Mark's place. Half an hour later, I was pounding on his door. Mark opened it, yawning, looking like he'd just woken up. Ethan, aren't you in Chicago? What are you doing back? Mark. I grabbed his shoulders, staring him in the eye. Tell me, am I married? Mark blinked, then gave me a look like I was an idiot. Dude, did you hit your head? You and Claire just got married. I drove you guys to City Hall. What's up? Buyer's remorse already. His words were a bucket of ice water dumped over my head. Even Mark, I don't know how I left his apartment. He told me everything. How I met Claire, how I pursued her, how I told him I was going to propose. He recounted it all with a huge grin, like he was the one getting married. He said I was happier than he'd ever seen me, that Claire was my soulmate. He said on the day we got the license, I was grinning like a fool. Every word was a hammer blow to my skull. I called my parents. My mom's voice was cheerful on the other end. Honey, what a surprise. Aren't you on your trip? Is Claire with you? You two are newlyweds now. You better be nice to her. My dad chimed in from the background. That's right. Claire's a wonderful girl. You hit the jackpot, son. You treat her right. The entire world knew I was married. The entire world knew Claire. Only I was the outsider, a ridiculous amnesiac. I dragged my leaden feet back to my so-called home. When I opened the door, Claire was sitting on the couch, as if she'd been waiting for me. She saw me and stood up, her eyes filled with a flicker of concern. You're back. I didn't say anything. I walked past her and dropped into the armchair across from her, feeling like my bones had turned to dust. I talked to Mark, and I called my parents, I said, my voice hoarse. She nodded, silent. They all said we're married. Yes. So, That means either I'm insane or the entire world is conspiring to lie to me. I let out a hollow laugh. She watched me for a long moment before speaking softly. You're not insane, and no one is lying to you. Then why can't I remember anything? I looked up, my eyes bloodshot. I don't know, she said, shaking her head. Maybe when you've had some rest, it will all come back. Rest? I felt like I would never rest again. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to be calm. Since every piece of evidence pointed to me being a married man, I had to accept it. For now, calling the cops was useless. My friends were useless. My family was useless. I was stuck here with this stranger. My wife. Okay, I said, I'll accept this. Set up. For now. But until I remember anything, we need to set some ground rules. It was the only thing I could control. Claire looked at me and nodded. Go on. First, I held up a finger. This apartment. The bedroom is yours. The couch is mine. We stay out of each other's way. You are not allowed in the spare room without my permission. I almost said my bedroom, before realizing she'd already claimed it. Okay, she agreed easily. Second, we are roommates, not a couple. Don't call me your husband, and don't do anything that actual married couples do. We go Dutch on everything. I'll cover the mortgage and utilities. You pay for your own expenses. She started to say something, but then just nodded. Okay. Third, and this is the most important one. I stared directly into her eyes. Do not try to change my life. Do not touch my things. And do not lie to me. I will find a way to figure out what's going on. And if I find out you're playing me. I didn't finish the sentence. The threat hung in the air. Claire's face paled, but she nodded again. I promise. With the terms agreed upon, the tension in the room eased slightly. But it was still brutally awkward. We both just sat there, looking at each other with nothing to say. The breakfast is getting cold, she said, gesturing to the table. I was starving. I walked to the table, picked up a sandwich, and took a huge, angry bite. It was actually pretty good. And just like that, we silently ate our first bizarre meal as a married couple. The hours that followed were pure torture. I locked myself in the spare room, what used to be my home office, and spent hours on Google, searching for short-term amnesia and dissociative memory loss. She stayed in the living room, watching TV with the volume turned down low. A closed door separated us, an invisible wall. That evening, I came out for a glass of water and saw her in the kitchen. The smell of food filled the apartment. Pot roast, mac and cheese, and a green bean casserole. All my comfort foods. She knew. She knew my tastes perfectly. The thought made my skin crawl. I'm not hungry, I said coldly, filling my glass and turning to go back to my room. You barely ate all day, she said from behind me. You should have something. I ignored her and shut the door. Leaning against it, I could hear the quiet clink of utensils from the kitchen. My stomach rumbled in protest. I was so damn frustrated. Late that night, I tossed and turned on the lumpy sofa bed in the office. It was too small, too uncomfortable. Meanwhile, my master bedroom, my king-size bed, was occupied by a stranger. I could hear the faint, steady rhythm of her breathing from the next room. She was sleeping soundly, and I was in exile in my own home. It felt awful. Sometime later, I drifted into a restless sleep. In my dream, I was at that gallery opening again. A girl in a white dress was glaring at me, annoyed because I just spilled coffee on her. Her eyes were bright, like stars. The scene shifted. We were on a park bench. She had a smudge of ice cream on her nose, and I was laughing as I reached out to wipe it away. Her cheeks turned bright pink. The final image was us, standing outside City Hall. I was holding her hand. She was beaming. Ethan, she said, we're married. I woke with a jolt, covered in a cold sweat. I sat up, my heart hammering against my ribs. The images had felt so real. So real I couldn't tell if they were dreams or memories trying to break through. I looked out the window. It was still dark. Then I heard a soft noise from the living room. I cracked my door open and peeked out. Claire was tiptoeing out of the master bedroom, carrying a thick comforter. She went to the main couch, looked around when she didn't see me, and then gently placed a blanket on the cushions before turning and going back to her room. I stood behind the door, staring at that blanket. A strange mix of emotions churned inside me. Was she worried about me? For the next few days, Claire and I continued our strange cohabitation. I slept in the office. She slept in the bedroom. I left for work in the morning, while she was home. I came back at night to a full dinner laid out on the table. Always 3 dishes, always covered to keep it warm, waiting for me. But I never ate with her. I made a point of eating at the office or grabbing something on my way home. Then I would walk in, take my portion of the meal she'd made, and scrape it into the trash. I knew it was a cruel, wasteful thing to do, but I had to. It was my way of maintaining the boundary, of reminding myself, and her, that we were not a couple. We were strangers. Every time I did it, she would watch silently, her expression unreadable, but with a dimming in her eyes. The next day, she would cook again. She was either incredibly patient or incredibly stubborn. Besides cooking, she kept the apartment spotless. She gathered my dirty laundry, washed it, dried it, and left it in a neatly folded pile outside my office door. She seemed to know every single one of my habits. What brand of coffee I drank, whether I used a soft or medium toothbrush, the fact that I turned on my computer before the TV when I got home. She knew it all. The more perfect she was, the more unnerved I became. It felt like my entire life had been put under a microscope. It was terrifying. I spent every free moment trying to investigate. I tore the apartment apart, looking for anything that didn't belong to me, any clue to her real identity. But there was nothing. Aside from her and a few of her clothes in my closet, the place was exactly as I had left it. She had integrated herself into my life seamlessly, leaving no trace of her arrival. One evening, I came home from work to find the light bulb in the entryway flickering. As I was taking off my shoes, Claire peeked out from the kitchen. "You're home." The light went out. "I can't reach it. Could you change it?" I didn't answer, just got a new bulb and the stepladder from the utility closet. I climbed up and started unscrewing the old bulb. "Hand it to me," I said to her below. She passed the new bulb up to me. Just as I reached for it, the ladder wobbled. A flash of panic hit me. I reached for the wall to steady myself, but missed. I was losing my balance, about to fall. Then a pair of soft arms wrapped around my waist from behind, steadying me. It was Claire. She was using all her strength to hold me up. I could feel her body trembling, her face pressed against my back. The faint scent of her shampoo filled my nose. I froze. It was the first time we touched. Are you okay?" she asked, slightly out of breath. "I'm fine," I said quickly, regaining my footing and climbing down. "Thanks," I muttered, then retreated into my office and shut the door. My heart was racing. I could still feel the warmth of her hands on my back. The feeling was strange. Not unpleasant, but it rattled me. That night, for reasons I couldn't explain, I didn't eat out. I came home, and dinner was on the table as usual. Claire looked surprised to see me there. You didn't eat at work?" "No," I mumbled, sitting down at the table. She didn't ask any more questions, just served me a bowl of rice. We ate in silence, facing each other. The awkwardness was so thick you could cut it with a knife. "So," she started, "it's the weekend tomorrow. Do you want to maybe go to the grocery store together?" I glanced up at her. "No, thanks," I said flatly. "Oh," she said, looking down at her plate. "On Saturday, I stayed in the office and played video games all day. In the afternoon, I heard a strange clanking sound from the living room. Curious, I opened my door and went to see what it was. Claire was squatting on the kitchen floor, struggling with a can of peaches. She had an arsenal of tools around her, spoons, scissors, even a screwdriver, trying to pry the damn thing open. A sheen of sweat had formed on her forehead. She looked a little pathetic and a little funny. I leaned against the doorframe, watching her for a moment. This perfect wife, who knew everything about me and kept the house in perfect order, couldn't even open a can. Ahem, I coughed pointedly. She jumped, startled. When she saw me, her face flushed red. I was trying to make a fruit salad," she explained, embarrassed. I walked over and took the mangled can from her hands. "Move." I had her step aside, then flipped the can upside down and gave the bottom a few hard taps. Then I wrapped my palm around the lid and twisted. With a soft pop, the lid came loose. The sweet smell of syrup filled the air. I set the open can down in front of her. "Thank you," she said quietly, her cheeks still pink. I turned to go back to my room. "Ethan," she called out suddenly. I stopped and looked back. "Actually," she said, looking at the can in her hands, hesitating, "there are a lot of things I don't know how to do. Before, you always used to help me." My heart gave a strange little thump. Before? In my memory, there was no before. But in her version of our story, our before was filled with these small, quiet moments of domestic life. Me opening cans for her cooking for me. It sounded disturbingly like a real home. Claire's words, "You always used to help me," landed like a pebble in a still pond. I started to wonder, against my will, what our so-called past was really like. I still didn't believe in the amnesia. It had to be a conspiracy, and Claire was at the center of it. But her reactions, blushing over a can, instinctively catching me when I fell, didn't feel like an act. On Monday, I was a wreck at work. I decided to focus on the crux of the problem, the missing 24 hours. My wedding day. Where was I? What was I doing? My flight information was real. The airline confirmed I boarded a 4 p.m. flight. The security cameras in my office building showed me leaving at 1:30 p.m. That meant I had a window of time from the morning until 1:30 to go to City Hall. But my memory was a solid block of being at work all morning. Something was wrong. I asked our IT department to pull my computer's activity logs for that day. The results came back. From 9 a.m. to noon, my computer was idle. A complete blank. The IT guy said it was unusual. Either I wasn't at my desk, or my computer was off. But I remembered answering emails that morning. My memory and the logs were in direct conflict. Which one was real? I took it a step further. I hired a private investigator to pull all the public security footage from around my apartment building and my office. 3 days later, he called me. "Mr. Hayes, it's strange. The cameras at your apartment entrance, your office lobby, every public camera in a 2-block radius of both locations. They all have a corrupted, unreadable segment on the morning in question. It's like the footage was deliberately erased." My stomach dropped. The surveillance footage was wiped. Whoever was behind this was far more sophisticated than I'd imagined. This wasn't a simple con. There was a powerful force manipulating everything. But why? Why force a wife on me? For my money? I was just a mid-level analyst. For my looks? I was a movie star. I couldn't make sense of it. I went home with a storm raging in my head. The moment I walked in, I was hit by the strong smell of ginger. Claire was in the kitchen, wearing an apron. "You're home," she said. Her face looked pale. "Dinner's almost ready." "What are you cooking?" "Smells strong." I frowned. "Ginger tea," she said. It's that time of the month. My cramps are bad." I paused, realizing what she meant. And then a completely foreign piece of knowledge popped into my head. She gets terrible cramps. The cold makes it worse. The thought was there and gone in a flash, too quick to grasp. It felt like a piece of my own memory. I shook my head, dismissing it. Mark, or my mom must have told her. "Well, take care of yourself," I said flatly, heading for my room. "Ethan," she called out again. "Yeah. Are you feeling okay today?" She looked at me, her eyes filled with genuine concern. "You look awful." "I'm fine," I said. "Is it your headache again?" She pressed. My heart skipped a beat. My headaches? I suffered from severe migraines when I was under a lot of stress. But only Mark and my family knew about them. How did she know? Could it be? Were the dreams, the flashes of random knowledge, real? Had I really lost a part of my memory? The idea was terrifying. If I couldn't trust my own mind, what was left? "I'm fine. Just leave me alone." I didn't want to talk about it anymore. I shut myself in the office. I sat staring at the PI's report on my screen. Corrupted footage, idle computer. The words were like black holes, threatening to swallow my sanity. Just then, my phone rang. An unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. "Hello." The voice on the other end was digitally altered, impossible to identify. "Mr. Ethan Hayes. This is he." "Who's this?" "Who I am isn't important. What's important is that I know what you're dealing with," the voice said slowly. My blood ran cold. "What do you want?" "Claire is not who you think she is. Stay away from her, or you will regret it." A direct threat. "Who the hell are you? What are you talking about?" I yelled into the phone. "Beep, beep, beep." The line went dead. I tried calling back. The number was out of service. I stood there, my phone clutched in my hand, my palms slick with sweat. The call confirmed it. Claire's appearance was part of a larger scheme. Someone was warning me away from her. Who were they? Her accomplices? Her enemies? Why warn me instead of just taking her? 1,000 questions exploded in my mind. I paced my small office, frantic. I couldn't be passive anymore. I had to confront her, get to the bottom of this. I walked out of the office. Claire was on the couch, sipping her ginger tea, her brow furrowed in pain. She looked up as I approached. "What's wrong?" I stood over her, my shadow falling across her. Claire, I said, my voice graver than it had ever been. I don't care who's behind you or what their game is. I'm giving you 3 days. Disappear from my life. If you don't, I won't be so civil about it. That phone call had filled me with a primal sense of danger. I couldn't have this woman in my house anymore. This wasn't just about my sanity now. It could be about my life. Claire looked up at me, her face even paler than before. Her lips parted as if to say something, but in the end, she just nodded. Okay. I expected Claire to pack her bags and leave. She didn't. She just stayed quietly going about her days, cooking, cleaning, doing laundry. It was as if my ultimatum meant nothing. I was furious, but I didn't know what to do. Calling the cops hadn't worked. I couldn't physically throw her out. So I watched, helpless, as the 3-day deadline ticked by. The 3rd day was my coworker's wedding. I'd RSVP'd months ago, already sent a gift. I was supposed to go alone. But now things were complicated, because everyone at the office knew I was married. The news had spread like wildfire. Someone had blabbed. Now I was getting strange looks in the break room. Ethan, you're bringing the new missus on Saturday, right? The groom had asked me. I'd managed a smile that felt more like a grimace. Bring her? Bring a total stranger, a potential grifter, to a wedding? It was insane. But what was the alternative? Say we had a fight? A week after getting married? Say she was sick? Someone would inevitably try to call her to send their well wishes. I was trapped. On Saturday morning, as I was still debating what to do, I heard movement in the living room. I walked out and found Claire already dressed. She was wearing a pale lavender dress, with light makeup and her hair done. She looked beautiful. It was the first time I'd really looked at her. She saw me and smiled, a little sheepishly. Mark told me you had a wedding to go to today. I thought you might need a date. Mark and his big mouth. I looked at her, a complicated feeling churning in my gut. She had even thought of this, trying to save me from an awkward situation, as if she were a real wife. Who told you to do that? I said, my tone harsher than I intended. I just didn't want you to be in a difficult position, she said. If you don't want me to go, I'll go change. She turned to go back to the bedroom. Wait, I said. What choice did I have? I had to see this through. Fine, you can come, but listen to me. Don't talk too much. If anyone asks you anything, just smile. Let me handle it. Okay, she said, nodding obediently. And so, for the first time, we went out in public together as husband and wife. The wedding was loud and crowded. The moment I walked in with Claire on my arm, we became the center of attention. Whoa, Ethan, so this is the wife you've been hiding. She's gorgeous. Nice to meet you. I'm one of Ethan's colleagues. So, when's your reception? You have to invite us. My co-workers swarmed us, and I fielded their jokes with a strained smile, sweat prickling on my back. Claire, however, was perfectly composed. She kept her hand on my arm, a pleasant smile on her face, and responded politely to everyone who spoke to her. She played the part so naturally, you'd think we'd been married for years. I almost believed it myself. At the reception, we were seated with a few of my closer work friends. Come on, Ethan, spill. How'd a guy like you land a girl like her? One of them teased. I picked up my glass, tried to think of a way to deflect. But Claire spoke first. Actually, I pursued him, she said with a laugh, glancing at me. The whole table oohed. No way. What did you see in this guy? Claire tilted her head, pretending to think. Probably the incredibly sincere way he apologized after spilling coffee all over my dress. It was the exact same story she'd told me. For a second, watching her smiling profile, I felt a dizzying sense of déjà vu. And then what? They all wanted to know. And then I decided that, even though he was a little clumsy, he was a good man. So I made the first move, she said. As she spoke, her hand found mine under the table and gave it a gentle squeeze. Her fingers were cool. My heart jolted. I wanted to pull away, but for some reason, I didn't. I spent the rest of the dinner on edge. Claire, on the other hand, was a social butterfly. She remembered every coworker's name I'd ever mentioned, even their little inside jokes. She was a world-class actress, playing the part of Ethan's wife to perfection. After the reception, we walked out of the hotel. The night air was cool. Claire, in her thin dress, shivered and wrapped her arms around herself. I hesitated for a moment, then took off my suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. Thank you, she said, looking up at me. Her eyes shone in the streetlight. Don't get the wrong idea, I said, turning away. I just don't want you to get sick and give it to me. She let out a soft laugh. We walked home in silence. The jacket she wore still held my warmth. Seeing her beside me, wearing my clothes, the scene felt so unnervingly normal. My resolve was starting to fray. I wasn't sure I hated this as much as I was supposed to. "Ethan," she said suddenly, stopping. "Yeah. The 3 days you gave me are up," she said. My stomach clenched. She was right. I told her to disappear, but she hadn't. I didn't know what to say. "I know you still don't believe me," she said, her expression serious. "But please, just give me a little more time. And give yourself a little more time. Maybe one day, you'll remember." "And what if I never remember?" I asked. "That's okay too," she said with a sad smile. "I'll wait." After the wedding, things between us shifted. I stopped trying to actively push her away. I even stopped throwing out the dinners she made. Sometimes, if I got home late, we would sit at the table together and eat in silence. The tension was still there, but it was no longer a declaration of war. I even let her make my office into a more livable bedroom, replacing the awful sofa bed with a proper twin bed and getting new curtains. Her presence was seeping into every corner of my life. I told myself I needed boundaries, but my body was already getting used to her, used to coming home to a hot meal, used to a clean apartment, used to finding a glass of honey water on my desk when my migraines flared up. This comfort terrified me. I was afraid I would get lost in this fake domestic bliss and forget to search for the truth. So, behind her back, I kept the private investigator on the case. I had him do a deep dive into Claire Miller's background. Where did she come from? Who were her parents? What did she do for a living? A person couldn't just appear out of thin air. A few days later, the PI sent me a file. Claire Miller's life was laid out in neat bullet points. Born to a middle-class family, parents were retired teachers. Graduated from State University with a degree in design. Worked at a small advertising agency. Everything was perfectly, flawlessly normal. But at the end of the report, the PI had added a note. "Mr. Hayes, everything about this woman's background feels meticulously crafted. Each piece fits, but the whole picture looks artificial. It's as if someone created an identity for her from a template." My heart sank, just as I suspected. It was all a lie. Who was she? As I was wrestling with this, the rainy season hit the city. It poured for a week straight, cold and damp. I've had a deep-seated fear of thunderstorms since I was a kid. It's not a simple fear. It's a visceral, physiological response. The sound of thunder makes my heart palpitate, my limbs go cold, and my whole body tremble uncontrollably. It's my deepest secret. Not even Mark knows. That night, the storm was violent. A crack of lightning lit up the sky, followed by a deafening boom that rattled the windows. I was in my small office bed, huddled under the covers, but the thunder pounded against my eardrums. My heart raced, and a cold sweat soaked through my shirt. The memories flashed. A dark, rainy night, a cavernous warehouse, a pair of cold eyes staring at me. The childhood trauma wrapped around me like a shroud. I curled into a ball, shaking. Just then, my door creaked open. A sliver of soft light cut through the darkness. I thought I was hallucinating. I'd locked the door. Claire's silhouette appeared in the doorway. She was holding a small nightlight. Seeing me trembling, she rushed to my side. "Ethan, are you okay?" she whispered, kneeling by the bed. I couldn't speak, just shivered harder. "Is it the thunder?" she asked. I snapped my head up to look at her. How could she possibly know that? I had never told a single soul. Sensing my shock, she reached out and gently placed her hand on my forehead. Her palm was warm. "It's okay," she said. "I'm here." The thunder roared outside, but strangely, with her hand on my skin, the panic in my chest began to subside. How did you get in?" I asked, my voice raspy. "I used a spare key," she said. "I heard the thunder, and I thought you might be scared." The spare key. I'd forgotten. We kept one in the shoe cabinet by the door. "How did you know I was afraid of thunder?" I pressed. It was the most important question. Claire was silent for a moment. "Before," she said softly, "every time it stormed, you were like this. So I always kept the spare key handy, just in case you locked the door and I couldn't get in." There was again. Before. That past I couldn't remember. In her before, she had apparently sat with me through countless storms just like this one. "Go to sleep," she said, not moving her hand. "I'll stay here until you fall asleep." I looked at her, her face soft in the dim light. In that moment, all my defenses, all my suspicions crumbled. I didn't push her away. I closed my eyes, focusing on the warmth of her hand and the steady sound of her breathing. The thunder outside seemed to fade away. I slowly drifted off. When I woke up the next morning, the sun was shining. The storm had passed. Claire was gone. I sat up and saw an extra blanket draped over me. A glass of water sat on the nightstand. I stared at it for a long time. Was this woman a master manipulator, or was her concern genuine? I went out and saw her on the balcony, folding laundry. She looked tired, with dark circles under her eyes. Had she sat by my bed all night? For the first time, a new feeling stirred in me. It wasn't suspicion or resentment. It was something I was almost afraid to name. It felt like affection. After that night, I got sick. A combination of the chill, the stress, and the emotional exhaustion sent me into a high fever. I was delirious, my body aching, my head splitting. Claire went into crisis mode. She took my temperature, wiped me down with cool cloths, and forced me to drink foul-tasting herbal remedies. I was too weak to protest, completely at her mercy. She didn't leave my side for a day and a night. Even when I was asleep, I could feel her checking my forehead, changing the cloth. By the time the fever broke, it was the morning of the third day. I opened my eyes and saw her asleep in the chair pulled up next to my bed, her head resting on the mattress. The morning light illuminated the fine hairs on her cheek and the exhaustion etched on her face. It was the closest I had ever been to her. My heart softened. Maybe I thought, maybe it's all true. Maybe I did lose my memory. Maybe I should just trust her. The thought was so foreign it scared me. I must have been sicker than I thought. I shifted slightly, and she woke up. Her eyes lit up when she saw me awake. "You're awake. How are you feeling?" She pressed her hand to my forehead. "Thank God the fever's gone." She smiled, her eyes crinkling into crescents. "I'll go make you some soup," she said, standing up too quickly. Her legs had fallen asleep, and she stumbled. Instinctively, I reached out and caught her arm. Her body was so light. We both froze. It was the first time I had ever willingly touched her. I'm fine," she stammered, her face flushing as she hurried out of the room. I looked at my hand, the ghost of her touch still on my skin. My heart was a mess. By the time I fully recovered, it was the weekend. Claire decided it was time to pack away the summer clothes and asked for my help. To my own surprise, I agreed. We worked together, sorting through the closet. Her wardrobe was simple, a few t-shirts, a couple of dresses. Mine took up most of the space. We packed away the warm weather clothes and pulled out sweaters and jackets. The whole process felt so natural, as if we'd done it 100 times before. As I was pushing a storage box under the bed, my hand hit something hard and cold. I pulled it out. It was a small, locked metal box, old and slightly rusted. "What's this?" I asked. When Claire saw the box, all the color drained from her face. She lunged for it, snatching it and clutching it to her chest like a precious treasure. "It's nothing," she said, her voice trembling. Her reaction only made me more suspicious. That box held her secret. "Open it," I said, my voice leaving no room for argument. "No." She shook her head, hiding the box behind her back. "Claire, this is your last chance," I said, my patience wearing thin. "Tell me who you are. Tell me what's in that box. If you don't, whatever trust we might have built is gone." We stood there, locked in a standoff. Her eyes welled up with tears. After a long, tense moment, she seemed to make a decision. She reached up and pulled a thin chain from around her neck. On it was a tiny key. With a trembling hand, she fit the key into the lock. Click! She handed the box to me, her voice thick with tears. "Ethan, I just hope, after you see this, you don't hate me." A sense of dread washed over me. I opened the box. Inside, there was no jewelry or secret documents, just a stack of photographs and a folded piece of paper. I picked up the top photo. It was a girl with a huge, joyful smile, standing in front of college campus. The girl was Claire, but it wasn't. The facial features were almost identical, but the energy was completely different. The girl in the photo was bold, confident, bursting with life. The Claire I knew was quiet and cautious. I flipped through the photos. They were all of this other girl, playing guitar, painting, singing on stage, vibrant and alive. Finally, I picked up the folded paper. I unfolded it. It was a death certificate. Name, Leah Miller. Cause of death, accidental. Date of death, 4 months ago. I stared at the name, then back at the photos. Leah, Claire. It all clicked into place. My hand started to shake. Who is she? I asked, pointing at the photo. Claire's tears finally fell. She's my sister, she whispered. My twin sister. My world imploded. A twin sister. So the person I met, the person I dated, the person I was supposed to marry. It wasn't you, I said, each word a shard of glass. It was her, wasn't it? Claire nodded, sobbing. The mystery was solved. Why did Claire know me so well? Because her twin sister had been my girlfriend. Why was all the evidence so perfect? Because the past was real. I just had the wrong leading lady. Why had I lost 24 hours of my memory? Why was the security footage erased? The anonymous call, the warning. You've been lying to me this whole time, I said, my heart turning to ice. You pretended to be your sister. You came here. Why? Claire wiped her tears and pulled another photo from the box. It was a picture of me and the girl, Leah. We were young, huddled together, smiling like we didn't have a care in the world. Leah, she loved you so much, Claire choked out. Before the accident, her biggest wish was to marry you. What accident? I demanded. A car crash. Claire's body trembled. 4 months ago, a car crash. She didn't make it. An invisible hand squeezed my heart, so tight I couldn't breathe. A car crash. 4 months ago. Fragmented images flashed in my mind. Blinding headlights, the shriek of tires, a splash of red. A girl, lying on the pavement, reaching for me. My head throbbed. So your sister died, and you decided to take her place to fulfill her dying wish. The logic was insane. Do you think that helps anything? Is this for my benefit or for hers? I wasn't thinking about that. Claire cried, jumping to her feet. I didn't want you to be in pain. You didn't want me in pain? I scoffed. This is 1,000 times worse. No, she shook her head desperately. When the accident happened, you were in the car too. You tried to protect her, and you suffered a severe head injury. The doctors said you might develop dissociative amnesia from the trauma, that you would selectively forget the most painful memory, that you would forget everything about Leah. My mind went blank. I was in the car. I forgot everything about Leah. The doctor said forcing you to remember could cause more brain damage. So we came up with this plan, she sobbed. We forged my identity, and me take Leah's place and stay by your side. We hoped that in a familiar, safe environment, you might remember on your own. We? Who's we? I seized on the word. It was Mark and your parents. Mark, my parents. They were all in on it. They had all conspired with Claire to create this elaborate lie. I felt like the world's biggest fool. What about the marriage certificate? I asked. That was me, she said, looking down. On that day, I pretended to be Leah and went with you. You were. Your head injury was still healing, and you were disoriented. We took advantage of that. I'm so sorry. So that was it. Not amnesia, but a concussion-induced haze. That's why my memory of that day was so foggy. And the person who wiped the security footage, the one who called me, I don't know, she said, shaking her head. I swear, we don't know anything about that. I have no idea why anyone would warn you. She didn't seem to be lying, which meant there was another player in this game, someone whose motives I didn't understand, and their target was Claire, or the woman they thought was Leah. So what's the plan now? I asked her, are you going to keep pretending to be my wife for the rest of your life? Claire didn't answer, just cried silently. I watched her, a storm of emotions warring inside me. I should be furious. I've been deceived by everyone I trusted. I should throw her out and cut them all out of my life. But looking at her red-rimmed eyes, her trembling shoulders, I couldn't summon the anger. I just felt a pang of sympathy. This past month must have been hell for her, too. Pretending to be someone she wasn't, living in a stranger's house, dealing with a hostile, grieving man who was supposed to be her husband. Stop crying, I sighed, pulling a tissue from the box on the coffee table and handing it to her. She took it, looking up at me, stunned. You're not kicking me out. I didn't answer. I just looked at the photos in the box. The girl in them had such a bright, carefree smile. Leah, my ex-girlfriend. I searched my mind for her name, her face, but there was nothing. Just a dull ache in my chest. Tell me about her, I said to Claire. Tell me about us. Claire stared at me, then nodded slowly, and she began to tell me the story of my life with her sister. That afternoon, Claire told me everything. She said Leah was bright and warm like the sun, passionate and curious about everything. We met in a club in college. I was the president of the photography club, and she was a model who lost my lens cap. I was the one who pursued her, creating a photo album of her over an entire semester. We were together for 3 years, traveled, fought, broke up, and got back together. Every detail she shared felt both foreign and strangely familiar, as if I were listening to a dream I'd forgotten. What was she like? I asked. Claire thought for a moment. She was brave and a total klutz. She'd get into a fight with teenagers to save a stray cat, then poke her fingers full of holes trying to knit you a scarf. I looked at the smiling girl in the photo, brave and clumsy. It sounded right. And you? I asked suddenly. What are you like? Claire was taken aback. Me? She said, uncertain. I'm not like her. I was always the quiet one. I liked to paint, to be alone. Everyone always said I lived in Leah's shadow. I looked at her. They were polar opposites. Fire and water. How had I not noticed? Was I that oblivious? Or was she that good an actress? Or was it just a face, the same face that had fooled me completely? I'm sorry, I said. For what? For how I treated you. I said, if I had known, I wouldn't have been so cruel. She was just a grieving sister trying to protect me. Claire just shook her head, a sad, bitter smile on her face. It's okay. You didn't know. After that day, everything changed. I no longer saw her as an intruder. She no longer had to pretend to be someone else. We became roommates, real ones. I'd tell her about my day at work. She'd show me her latest sketches. I learned she loved spicy food, but hated cilantro. She learned I liked to sleep with an extra pillow. We were slowly, carefully getting to know the real people we were. The metal box stayed on the coffee table. I looked through it every day, tried to reclaim the memories of me and Leah, but my mind was a blank slate. All I felt was that persistent ache. I was starting to accept it. I had loved a girl named Leah, and now she was gone. And I was starting to accept that a woman named Claire was now a part of my life. My wife in name only, my dead girlfriend's twin sister. Our situation was a tangled mess, but we both tacitly agreed not to talk about it, maintaining a fragile peace. Until the black car appeared. It was a normal afternoon. I was on the balcony, watering my dying houseplant, when I glanced down at the street. A black sedan with no license plates was parked across from my building. The windows were tinted, impossible to see inside. I didn't think much of it at first, but for the next few days, it was always there. Same spot, unmoving, a silent, waiting predator. My internal alarms went off. I remembered the threatening phone call. Stay away from her. They had found us. Who were they? Were they after Claire? Or the woman they thought was Leah? Was Leah's car crash really an accident? I didn't tell Claire. I didn't want to scare her. I just started driving her to and from the small art studio where she now taught children's classes. Why are you suddenly being so nice to me? She asked jokingly one day. It's on my way, I lied. I watched the black car every day. They never moved, just watched. What were they waiting for? A week later, I was working late. It was almost 11 when I got home. The car was still there. I parked and was about to head inside when the car doors opened. 2 men in dark suits got out and walked toward me. My gut clenched. I slipped my hand into my pocket, my fingers wrapping around my phone. Ethan Hayes, one of them asked. That's me. Who are you? Our boss would like to see you. Who's your boss? You'll find out when you get there. Their tone was polite, but their eyes were cold. I knew I had no choice. Okay, I nodded. Let's go. They took me to a deserted warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The place. A jolt went through me. It was the same place from my childhood nightmare, the source of my fear of thunder. Dark, cavernous, and damp. They led me to a man sitting in a chair, his back to me. You're Ethan? He asked, his voice calm but heavy with authority. I am, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Who are you? What do you want with me? The man slowly turned. He was in his late 40s, with sharp, calculating eyes. I'm Leah's father, he said. I froze. Leah's father? Claire said her parents were retired teachers. You don't have to look so surprised, the man said, as if reading my mind. The identity Claire told you about is a cover. My name is Marcus Thorne. Both Leah and Claire are my daughters. Marcus Thorne, the name was familiar. He was a powerful, ruthless real estate magnate, with a reputation for playing dirty. So Leah and Claire weren't middle-class girls. They were heiresses. Then why? Why the secret identity? Thorne cut me off. Because my business is complicated. I have enemies. I didn't want my daughters to become targets. Leah's car crash. A horrifying thought began to form. It wasn't an accident, Thorne said, his eyes turning to ice. It was them. They were targeting me. Leah took the hit that was meant for me. My blood ran cold. It all made sense now. The elaborate charade, the warning calls. It was all part of corporate war, and Leah had been a casualty. So why bring me here now? I asked. I want you to leave, Claire, he said. You're a civilian. You don't belong in this world. I'll give you a sum of money, enough to live comfortably for the rest of your life. Take it, leave this city, and never come back. He pulled a cashier's check from his pocket and slid it across the table. I glanced at it. There were more zeros than I could count. All I had to do was nod, and I could walk away from all this danger, back to my simple, quiet life. It was the smart choice, the only choice. But the face that appeared in my mind was Claire's. Claire, blushing because she couldn't open a can. Claire, exhausted, watching over me while I was sick. Claire, her warm hand on my forehead during the storm. If I left, what would happen to her? She had already lost her sister. Would she lose the only person she had left? I'm not leaving, I said. Thorne's brow furrowed. Do you have any idea what you're saying? If they could go after Leah, they can go after you. You could be killed. I know, I nodded. But I'm not leaving. Why? Because Claire is my wife, I said, looking him straight in the eye. Her name is on that marriage certificate. I'm her husband, and I can't abandon my wife when she needs me most. Maybe our marriage had started as a lie, but somewhere along the way, somewhere in the quiet moments of care and comfort, it had become real to me. From a moment she faced the thunderstorm for me, she had become an irreplaceable part of my life. Thorne stared at me for a long time, his expression shifting from sharp to something more complex. You've made up your mind? I have. He sighed and pulled the check back. You remind me of myself when I was younger, he said. Stubborn. Foolish. He stood, walked over, and placed a heavy hand on my shoulder. All right, but you protect her. If anything happens to her, I will hold you personally responsible. I nodded. I will. It was late when I finally got home. I opened the door to find Claire pacing in the living room, frantic with worry. The moment she saw me, she rushed over. Where have you been? It's so late. I called and you didn't answer, she cried, her eyes red. Seeing her so worried, my heart warmed. I pulled her into my arms and held her tight. She stiffened for a second, surprised. It was the first time I had ever initiated a hug. I'm okay, I whispered in her hair. I'm sorry I worried you. She didn't pull away. After a moment, her arms came up and wrapped around my back. I could feel her body trembling in my embrace. I thought you weren't coming back, she sobbed. Silly, I murmured, stroking her hair. How can I not come back? This is my home. Wherever you are is my home. Claire, I said, pulling back to look at her. Things might get dangerous for a while, but don't be scared. I looked into her eyes and made her a promise. I'll protect you. Thorne's revelation shattered the fragile peace we had built. I knew danger was lurking. I quit my job. I needed to be with Claire to protect her. I upgraded the locks on our doors, installed alarms on the windows. I even took a few self-defense classes. It was probably useless, but it made me feel better. Claire left her job at the art studio. We were together 24/7. The constant tension was suffocating. But strangely, in that pressure cooker, our feelings for each other grew. There were no more secrets between us. She told me stories about growing up with Leah, how Leah was the wild one, and she was the quiet follower who cleaned up her messes. I told her about my own childhood, about the warehouse incident that sparked my fear of thunder. We filled in the blanks of each other's lives. I never did remember Leah, but it didn't matter anymore. The past was the past. The person in front of me was the one I needed to cherish. Thorne's enemies, the ones in the shadows, seemed to have vanished. But I knew it was just the calm before the storm. The days passed in a strange mix of anxiety and domesticity. Winter arrived, and the first snow fell. I woke up one morning to a world blanketed in white. Claire was pressed against the window, her face lit with childlike excitement. Ethan, it's snowing, she said, turning to me with a brilliant smile. It was brighter than the snow outside. Looking at her, I felt a sudden urge. Claire, I said, walking to her side, let's go for a walk. We bundled up in heavy coats and walked out into the quiet, snow-covered world. We walked in comfortable silence, our boots crunching on the fresh powder, until we reached a nearby park. It was deserted, a pristine winter wonderland. We sat on a bench by the frozen lake. "Claire," I said, looking at her nose, pink from the cold, "when this is all over, let's get married for real." She froze, turning to look at me. Her eyes, reflecting the falling snow, were impossibly bright. "What? What did you say?" I said. I took her cold hand in mine. "Let's start over. Not as Ethan and Leah's replacement. As Ethan and Claire." I don't know where the words came from. I just knew, with absolute certainty, that I wanted to spend the rest of my life with this woman. Tears welled in her eyes, but she was smiling as she nodded over and over again. Okay, that winter didn't feel so cold anymore. Thorne's enemies made their move, eventually, but they failed. Thorne had been one step ahead of them the whole time, setting a trap they walked right into. It was a war fought in boardrooms and back alleys, a war I was glad to know nothing about. When it was over, Thorne called me. "You won, kid," he said. "No one will bother you again." I hung up and looked at Claire. We both broke into wide, relieved smiles. We had survived. The next day, we went to City Hall. We filed for divorce. The little certificate that had been the foundation of our lie was replaced by a different document. "Didn't you two just get married?" the clerk asked, confused. Claire and I looked at each other and smiled. "Some things need a proper ending to get a new beginning," I said. We walked out of the clerk's office into the crisp spring air. The old oak tree outside had new buds on its branches. "Where to now?" Claire asked. I took her hand and led her right back inside. I said to the same bespectacled clerk, "We're here to get a marriage license." The woman looked at us, then at the divorce papers in her hand, utterly bewildered. "You kids and your games," she muttered. I smiled, pulled a ring from my pocket, and slid it onto Claire's finger. It was an exact match to the first one. "Claire Miller," I said, dropping to one knee in the middle of the county clerk's office. "Will you marry me?" Ethan Hayes, a man who forgot his past, but will never forget his love for you. Tears streamed down her face, but this time they were happy ones. "Yes," she whispered. We took a new photo, filled out a new form, and gave new thumbprints. When the clerk handed us the fresh, new marriage certificate, I looked at the photo of us huddled together, our smiles genuine and bright. I leaned in and kissed her on the forehead. "Hello, Mrs. Hayes." "Hello, Mr. Hayes." Our story, the real one, was just beginning.